is deaf and you're the hearing person, you're the minority now, and you have to navigate the conversation with these people. So the tables are turned because normally the hearing world, the deaf person's navigating conversations. So we convinced this huge company to pull in the supervisors and the managers that worked with the deaf employees. So they required it. We had this one old burly guy that was just always just a bully to the deaf people. They'd walk off and he'd yell at them and na 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 na. And so we got it required. He came in and got about halfway around through the different stations and went, "Oh my God. Deaf people experience this every day. What have I done?" And he cried. He realized, "Oh my God, I've been a bully." And so he became, after a few more years, he was probably one of our best managers for the deaf people. They loved him because all of a sudden it hit. Wow. And so he became very accommodatable. They still were expected to do the work, but he then waited and, hey, and let's get an interpreter for the meetings, and here's the instruction, and just became wonderful. So we were very excited. So it does touch people's lives because then they go, wow, I never thought about that.
Fantastic. Did you need to ask her a question?
No, I'm done.
She's listening.
All right. How much funding, or how can we find out how much funding does OSU have in place to just support deaf students?
Well, it depends on the semester, but ADA requires accommodation. So there is always a line item for ADA, and whether that's testing facility. I mean, we have a testing center. Those are for disabled people who need extra time, not just for the people that miss the class, but people who need the extra time. We have captionists. We have the ITLE that's captioning the film. So if you're looking at the overall, there's so many things that are touched by the law, but are still required, and just overall good for everyone that's involved. So if you're looking at the overall monetary, but the funding comes from tuition just like everything else. Maybe some state, some federal monies. But if you were trying to look at just how much do we spend on interpreting or captioning or captionists, we don't pay too many note takers because they're usually student volunteers, but some semesters it's this big and some it's this big and some it's this big and some it's none, and depends. But the money, regardless if we have an influx of students coming in, we still have to provide. So they're going to scramble and find the money somewhere because you can't not provide. Not while I'm here, you're not going to not provide. It will be provided and they'll just figure out how to pay it. Mm-hmm. So that's not my problem.
Yeah, it's like you're at college. What's the point if you're not going to get to
They pay tuition. We're gonna provide.
Fantastic. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe some like the worries or fears you have when you are interpreting? Are you nervous about not getting across sometimes, or?
Well, if the student decides to slave, that's not my problem. And I'm not shy, so if I don't understand the teacher, if their accent is too thick or they're speaking too fast or they're reading too fast, I will say, hey, slow down just a little bit, or repeat it again, or I'll visit with them about some more visual, like PowerPoints or something that will aid everyone in the class because maybe their accent's just not understandable. But part of being ethical, if this class is over your head, like I would not ask my student here to go into one of my engineering classes because she'd go, I don't get math. So I always, if it's a new interpreter, they're never alone. I'm going to team them with someone who's more seasoned so that they can learn. Or if they already have a pretty good grasp on that, then I think, okay, then I can trust for the next class that they can work by themselves. But I would never bring in a new interpreter and ever have them working alone without having teamed with them or having someone who's experienced with that type of class teaming with them to make sure that our students are getting access, equal access. Because I'm not going to put someone in there that can not really get it out there, and then the student's missing half of it, and then they don't get a good grade. That's not fair. So we don't ever put you alone until I know you can do it.
Definitely. What's some of like the most rewarding parts of being an interpreter?
I don't know. I just love working with the deaf community. They're so honest. I guess seeing the kids graduate and go off and get jobs and live happy lives. I don't know. Working on legislation, seeing it passed in full. I don't know. Just because, like, here every month we have silent dinner and we get together and we see people we haven't seen for a few months, and it's just that camaraderie. It's different. They're very supportive.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You kind of talked about, like last time I spoke with you and Emma, about you kind of like did a career change and decided to do this instead. Can you kind of explain the reasoning?
Well, I was doing hair, and one of my consumers said, "Hey, would you mind going to Miss Deaf, Oklahoma, and do our hair? There's a few girls that need their hair done and maybe their makeup." And I went, "Okay, sure." And I knew sign at that time. And so I thought, okay, so I went back there and did all these little girls' hair for Miss Deaf, Oklahoma. It's kind of the equivalent to Miss America, or Miss Oklahoma, I should say. And then they move up to the national for Miss Deaf America. So I did their hair and thought, well, I'll just stay, hang out, watch their platforms, and, see what's exciting, because I knew several of them, what they were going to talk about. I thought, oh, this is exciting. Wow, a strong group of women. Woohoo! Went out there, and the interpreters were voicing for these people. I'm going, that's not what she voiced, is not what you said. Oh my God, oh my gosh. And so I was furious, because I said, they did not voice right what you said. And what the other one, they did not voice right what they signed. That's wrong. It's wrong. And she's like, really? So then I started asking around to some of my deaf friends and saying, so when you go to the doctors, when you go to school, when you go here, do you have good voicers? I mean, do they voice for you? Do you sign? Do you understand? And they're like, this is in the 80s. And I'm thinking, this is not right. So I went back to school to learn this art of interpreting, because surely there has to be something. So I went back and did my interpreting thing and sold my business. Just dove right into it and started professionally in 1990, working and earning money and providing better services and advocating and promoting for better services for the deaf people. So it's just been...
Definitely. How did you come to get to OSU?
We had Martel Van Zandt. He was a football player here at OSU, and they're like, oh, we need someone. And so I said, sure. I thought, okay, I'll be here for 4 years. And because I've been an independent contractor for many years. I've never been an employee of anyone. Came here and went, whoa. And then other deaf people came that I had worked with since they were like 2. And they were going to college, so I thought, well, I'll stay till, they're finished. And then other deaf people come, and well, I'll stay till they're finished. And I'm still here. I've got a few other deaf people, I'll stay till they're finished. But right now we teach ASL 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we teach an ethics class and do some interning and mentoring. So, it's not, I also work with the interpreters plus the deaf students and crazy students like this one. Good group of people.
Great. Where did you go to? Well, when did you first learn sign language?
Way back in the 70s, before you were born. I lived in Alaska, and there was a high populated, big group of deaf people that lived there. And it was convenient, when you're going skiing and someone's going down the slope and you're going up the lift to, hey, where are we going to meet? Okay, gotcha. And just easy to communicate. The school I went to was huge, so you couldn't really yell across 5 floors. So you could sign, and, wasn't bad. And then I moved to the lower 48 and started doing hair, and deaf people find you. And then lots of people find you. So, I just continued hanging out with them and doing hair and doing taxes and whatever else, and until I went, whoa, that's not right. gave it all up and changed to interpreting.
Where and when did you go to study
At the time it was TJC, Tulsa Junior College. Now they've changed to TCC, Tulsa Community College. That was 85, is right after my son was born. And that's a associate's program. And then a few years later I was working with a lot of deaf people trying to find jobs. So I went back and got my bachelor's in HR. And then later on I was working in universities and voc techs, and so I thought, So I go back to school to speak whoever's hearing person's language so that they understand, so they can get deaf person's needs met. So I went back and got my adult education in my master's, and then I work a lot in courts, and so I'll go back and get my JD so I can speak the legalese, and so it just keeps on going. I have one more space on my wall, just in case. So you never know.
Are you from Alaska originally?
No, my father was military. We traveled all over.
Okay.
Lived all over the world. All over the world.
Wow. Where else?
We lived in Europe. I was in Germany, and we got to travel to France and Italy and Greece and all those places. Lived in Asia, Korea and Japan, then Alaska, and every state have been in except for Maine. Been to Mexico and the northern part of South America. So been quite a few places.
I understand. My dad was in the Navy. I lived long places in the country, but his dad was Air Force, and he lived in Japan.
Yeah.
And, almost every state. So
yeah, it's a lot of moving.
Definitely. Do you have a favorite sign or a few favorite signs? Just wondering.
I don't know. Probably not.
Favorite words. I was wondering, you were talking about the EIPA, and I was wondering, it reminded me of when Emma was talking about how she wanted to be an interpreter as well.
Certified deaf interpreter.
Deaf interpreter. And I was wondering if she would have to take it the same EIPA, or if
it's under the National Association of the Deaf, because obviously she's not hearing, she's deaf. And so part of a CDI, a certified deaf interpreter's role, is to look at the interpreter, see what they're saying, and then this deaf person has maybe a foreign language, maybe from another country, or maybe they're just lower level because we've had those 50%ers in there signing for those poor kids, and so their comprehension level is not our norm. And to make things faster and smoother and actually better, you get the CDI to come in there. For example, if you have an abuse case with someone who's low-level language, maybe a child, or maybe just doesn't have exposure to language because 80% of the parents don't learn sign, and so there's no communication at home. So there's a lot of things that aren't communicatable in what we would call standard ASL, standard signs. So we get a CDI to come in, and they're just, because they've had the struggles all their lives, they're able to connect. And then they can get the information, give it back to the interpreter for the interpreter to voice to whoever's doing the investigation or whatever is going on. And so there's smoother communication. It's more equitable, and you get to the bottom of things much quicker, so you're not dragging out and putting people through all kinds of issues trying to get information. So CDIs are very valuable. Mental health, court, anything to do with child welfare, oftentimes in school, because oftentimes, like I said, 80% of the parents don't sign, so they may be very far behind in language acquisition, and so if you get a deaf person in there, they can kind of catch up. They never fully catch up, but they can catch up at least and have conversation, communication.
Definitely. And how important, if someone does go to court and they need an interpreter, or if they, just even in classrooms helping interpret, do they have to be certified to do things like that?
Oklahoma does have a law that says you're supposed to be nationally certified and have the special workshops in legal or certification or a JD or something, because just a regular person may not understand all of the vocabulary that goes with. For an example, we had someone that was not qualified interpreting for a case many, many years ago, and because of the lack of quality, all the evidence gathered was not admissible. And the person got off free and committed again a similar crime, which was horrendous. And finally they went, oh, maybe we need a qualified interpreter. Hello. And so then the person was convicted justly and is serving time, as they should. We've had people who are convicted falsely because they didn't have a qualified interpreter and are in jail when they shouldn't be in jail, or have lost children even when they shouldn't have lost their children. So having a qualified interpreter is very important.
Definitely. Is there anything else you'd like to add or expand on?
Anything else you can think of I need to inform this young lady of?
No.
Well, do you mind if I just take a few footage of just kind of
Sure.
you working and maybe some of your
We can
Yeah,
sign.
you can sign
Yeah,
my desk.
that'd be great. We like to have things to illustrate the story with. And
Okay.